Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart, Navigating Lipedema Together. I'm Lisa Duerre, and I'm here with the fabulous, amazing, inspiration, original heart guide, researcher extraordinaire, documentarian, and dear friend, Dr. Catherine Seo. How's that for an intro, Catherine?
That's a good Monday morning intro. Thank you, Lisa.
Oh
Hi,
my
everyone.
I'm so glad you're here. And everyone, thank you for your patience while we got here today. As a working mom with lipedema, these mornings sometimes are a little rushed for me. So thank you for your patience. Catherine, anything you want to say before we get people excited about who we have on the show today? What would you like to say?
I'm just so thrilled that Susan's here. Go ahead and do her intro because the more time we have to talk with her, the better.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, everyone, if you know Susan O'Hara, handle legs like mine, you are already know you're in for a treat. But if you don't know Susan O'Hara, you want to lean into the conversation today. We'll bring Susan up and I'm going to talk to you about how we met her and why this matters so much. But we're going to talk about lipedema, working with lipedema, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of advocacy, and everything in between. So, Susan, welcome to the show.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's good to be here. I've had coffee, so warned. You've been warned.
Oh, I love it, love it. Me too. I grab my coffee too, indeed. So you know what? I always start with how I know our guests. So let me just start there, Susan, if I could. I learned about lipedema through the documentary Catherine did. And then I started looking online for people who were talking about it so I could accelerate my learning. I joined the Lipedema Simplified tribe. I found your Instagram handle, Legs Like Mine, and I instantly felt like, oh, she gets me. Even the title, Legs Like Mine. But you had a book called Jeans on a Beach Day, and I had spent my life wearing jeans to the beach, and it just got right to the heart for me. So I started following you, and then I will call myself a fangirl, right? This is early in my lipedema world because I was like, oh, do I message her? Do I say anything? I don't know. She's probably really busy, blah, 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 right? But you started doing fashion. You started talking about what to wear with compression and lipedema. And I was so grateful because as a public speaker, as a leader in tech, I was really struggling with how do I present in a way where I feel confident in my body. And you inspired me with that. And then I'm on my way to Potsdam to be at the Lipedema World Congress. And here I see you. I'm going to be in Potsdam. Find me in the polka dot dress. And that's when I said, oh, I'll be there too. And you're the first person I looked for. And I just wanted to say thank you for putting out in the world, how to be confident in your body at work, what it means to live in a larger size body at a later stage. That's me, right? And I kept telling Catherine, this Susan O'Hara, oh my gosh. So, Catherine, how did you first learn of Susan, and what was your first inspiration about her?
Oh, Susan's been writing, blogging, putting books out, and advocate for lipedema for years now. It's got to be at least 4 or
Mhm,
5 years.
mhm.
Yeah. And so through her blog posts and what she was doing. But I'll tell you, and this is why I'm so excited that she's here today, because I think it's a conversation we need to have, which is, as everyone knows, I'm a staunch advocate and have had to advocate everywhere because when I started, no one even knew about lipedema. And Susan's story and what she went through in order to get the support she needed should not happen to anyone. And I think it's important for us to know because, Susan, what you did with it is amazing. But that you had to go through it is tragic.
Mhm.
And I feel like it helps our ladies know what it's like out there
Right.
and why we navigate together because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
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 Susan, well, let's have a heart to heart. We're navigating lipedema together. And I just want
Sounds
to say
good.
good morning to Glenda and Beth and Marilee and Mac Attack and Dr. Harriet Richard. We're so glad you're here. And so, Susan, what would you like to bring into this conversation at this moment?
Well, I think given the introduction from Catherine, why don't I just tell my story about what happened to me? So, I've been online now for 4 years, and people see this side of me that's kind of fun. That's kind of, I dress in these crazy outfits a lot of times, lots of polka dots, lots of fun. Makeup, which if you knew me in my personal life, you'd be like, makeup. right? But in my career, in my past life, I was a high level government manager for 28 years. I worked for the government, right? In a male dominated industry. I live in Oklahoma City, and a majority of my work was done in Washington, D.C. So I was traveling back and forth all the time, had employees in 44 states, dealing with billion-dollar budgets, all the stuff that both of you all can probably relate to, right? You're both kind of working at that level or have worked at that level in your careers too.
Yep.
And in DC, there were not a lot of fun prints to be worn. I typically wore a lot of things that sort of aligned to how males dress, because I think where I worked, it was 70 to 80% male dominated. And to move ahead, you definitely needed to sort of align with the dress code, right?
Yeah.
So I wore a lot of two-piece suits, a lot of black. If you look at my closet right now, I probably have 10 black blazers hanging up in there, right? I'm going to get rid of them though, because they're starting to get dusty.
Oh,
Anyway, so I was traveling all the time under times of extreme stress. Sometimes we would get congressional calls and be like, we need the information right now. We need a report run. We need whatever. And I worked for a second level manager who was just a difficult person. I mean, and it wasn't just to me, it was to every one of the directors and group managers that worked for this person. He was just difficult. And so to sort of make this a little bit more concise, some stuff happened at work that one day I came home and my left leg specifically was blown up to like twice its normal size. And so I freaked out. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I went to the doctor and she said, Susan, you need to go to this referral I'm making you to a lymphedema therapist who is going to help you figure this out. You need to take some time off of work to get this done. And so I went to the therapist that day. They got me in that day. And the therapist was like, all right, we're going to start congestive therapy, right? Decongestive therapy. We're going to have to wrap you. You need to elevate your legs. You need to be in the pool, all the stuff, right? Or you need to come in every single day for massage and measuring. And this is going to be super intense 3 weeks of time, but we've got to get this leg down because it's going to bust open if you're not careful, right? And she was like, whatever you're doing that is so stressful in your life, it needs to stop immediately. And I'm talking about years of chronic stress, right? I loved my job. I loved the people I worked with. I loved traveling. I like the whole lifestyle, right? Had a condo in DC, all that stuff. I loved it. So I called my boss. Obviously, when you've worked someplace for 28 years, you have hundreds, thousands of hours of sick leave on the books. It should not be an issue, right? I called my boss and I'm like, okay, I told her what's going on. I need to take 3 weeks of leave off, right? She says, no problem. And I go about my way, right? So I'm going to pause you right there to sort of set the context of what job I'm in at the time. I'm in an acting director position, which is as high as you can go without being an actual executive. Like in the government, it's kind of different, And I have been in this position for a year, but with the government, promotions take a while to process, right? So they put you in the job and then they process your promotion, you get the paperwork, right? So in that position too, every week I get a list of like, these are the personnel actions that are pending, right? I see my name on the list for weeks and weeks and weeks, promotion to this high grade. So I come back from my 3 weeks of leave and I get the list and my name's not on the list anymore. And I'm like, oh, it must be processing, because that was kind of typical too. Like they'll get this personnel action letter, right? I don't get it. And so I don't think anything about it. I'm super busy in meetings, 9 to 10 hours a day, back to back to back, right? So there's not a lot of time to think about my own self. A little bit later, I go to dinner at my first level boss's house, and she has one glass of wine too many. And she says, we're talking about my lipedema and lymphedema. And she says, well, that's why this person canceled your promotion. And I said, say what? Say what now? And she said, oh yeah, he heard that you took sick leave and he didn't believe that it was legitimate and he canceled your promotion. And I was like, so it's going to be take everything I can to not curse during this. So just excuse me if I slip one. Okay.
We can
I was
bleep
like,
you, Susan. Don't worry.
okay, that's fine. I was like, oh, hell no, that is illegal. You can't take adverse action on someone for a medical condition. And so he literally, like, they still have me doing this job as the director for 8 more months.
Hold on. Wait, I'm going to pause this because I want this to land. Hang on a second. You're doing the job. You have a medical condition. You take 3 weeks off. You don't take 9 months off. You don't go on long-term disability. You take 3 weeks off to help your body. You come back. You now are no longer on the list of personnel actions, which I know means in the queue for promotion. You go to a party and you find out, a back door, if you will, because a tipsy little glass of wine helps people speak their truth. And you find out you're no longer in the running for the promotion.
Right.
Whoa.
I know. So the next day after the party, right, I am like, this is bull. I file an EEO complaint, equal employment opportunity complaint, immediately, right? And in the government, things take a while. So to shorten the story, there's a lot that goes into this too. They canceled an executive education training that I had been in the queue for 4 years during this time too.
What?
And they did. And so my boss, my first level boss, was like, okay, I see that you've filed an EEO complaint. And I also did what's called a Freedom of Information Act request on the phones of my boss, the phones of my second level boss, all the minutes, everybody's emails. I FOIA'd everything. And when they come to work that next day after the party, everybody comes in for the regular meeting and they're like, we all got FOIA requests and we can't delete any email. What the hell is going on? And I'm like, you pissed the wrong person off because I know the rules. I've been on the other end of these accommodation requests, EEO complaints for years. I know how the system works, right? I also know that you should get an attorney, which I did not do because I was a little bit overconfident. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
So anyway, they ended up giving me, instead of the executive course that I had been in line for 4 years, they said, Susan, just pick something, pick anything. We'll do anything to make that part of it up to you. And I said, great, send me to Harvard Executive Education. So I went to that. It was amazing. I'm so glad I went to it. I met some.
What's it called? When you get lemons, make lemonade. You're like,
right?
How about I just go to Harvard?
Right? Oh, yeah, it was awesome. I was in the room with like the lady who signed the Netflix deal to buy all of the Disney intellectual property. Her name was on the signature. I was in the room with Amazon executives and people who own these huge international companies. So it was a huge opportunity, right? But that didn't solve the problem that they hadn't been paying me to do that job. So I asked for retroactive pay, which the government says cannot be done. Believe me, y'all, anything can be done. They didn't do it. I asked, so I was like, I at least want it in my paperwork that I've been doing this executive job. So they did all these shenanigans and backdated the thing that says I was doing the job, did not change my pay. They never fixed the pay, you know? So anyway, the EEO complaint gets handed down on a technicality. We tried to go to mediation. It was canceled the minute they found out what I was asking for in, like payment compensation for the pain and suffering they put me through. So anyway, I lost all of those things because of like legal technicalities, because the guy who canceled my promotion said he wasn't aware that I had been on medical. I mean, it's just a bunch of crap, right? So anyway, I'm like, okay, then I want a reasonable accommodation. I sent in packets of information from my doctor, my lipedema surgeon, and we had, I can't say the exact title of it because I don't want to give away the agency, but we had a chief medical advisor for the agency I work for, and they were the ultimate decision maker on whether or not the agency should accommodate you, right? They looked at the packet and they came back and they said, you should accommodate her. That stress is an actual cause of triggers and flares in a lot of conditions,
Yeah.
and you need to accommodate her. Okay, so the accommodation I asked for was less travel, right? Especially needless travel during COVID, where you're flying to Washington, D.C. to sit in an empty office when your employees are all over the world, right?
Mhm.
Um, I asked to be removed from working for the man, right?
Yeah.
And
Your immediate boss.
he was my second level
Second
manager,
level
the
boss. Yeah.
director,
Mhm.
right? So they denied me. They said no. We don't. We so ultimately, your first level manager is the decision maker. She got the word that yes, this medical group says it needs to be accommodated, but no, she does not want to remove me from the organization working for that man. And so they sent me a denial letter, right? And so stress was real. Like when you would work with this guy, you'd leave the meeting just feeling like a pile of rocks, feeling demoralized, like nothing you did was good enough. He actually said to me one time in a meeting, "How many times do I have to tell you how to do your job?" And I was like, that's my trigger point right there. I'm a good worker. I know this. I've been here longer than you. I know this system. Don't you dare say that to me. Because I mean, that's one of the things, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he was terrible. So they denied me the accommodation, and I was like, so as a manager, I have granted that particular accommodation to, for example, a man who had a heart attack and who said, I need to be moved into a different position that's less stressful because I might have another heart attack or whatever.
Mhm.
I've granted all kinds of reasonable accommodations to people who were going through prostate cancer and needed less stress or something and needed less stress, right? The bottom line of all of this, and again, stuff you hear outside of the meeting is the stuff that really matters,
Yep.
They didn't believe that it's a real condition. The people in my immediate circle, not medical, right, did not believe. They thought I was making it up. They thought I was just obese. They didn't recognize the fact that stress it is a huge trigger for flares in people with lipedema and with mast cell activation disease, right?
Yep.
And so I read through the fine paperwork and I was like, I had 7 more years until official retirement. And I was like, I can't do this for 7 more years. Like, I literally don't know if other things are going to happen to my body because of this chronic stress. And so I read through the paperwork, the rules of the agency and the government in general. And it says, once you've been denied a reasonable accommodation, you can actually apply to retire on disability. And I did. But to make this kind of wrap up and just like one final kick in the pants, I mean, I was a great employee and I a great manager. I loved my people. I mentored. I tried to uplift people, give them opportunities and stuff like that. So I filed my retirement paperwork in June of, let me get my year straight, 2022, right? Don't hear anything for a really long, nothing, just crickets, right? I'm in a meeting in January of 2023, so 7 months later, back-to-back meetings. I think somebody was actually giving me a presentation for like a project management plan or something, and I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's this lady from the Office of Personnel Management, and she's like, "Hey, your application for disability retirement has been approved. Yesterday was your last day." And before I could even like download my personnel file or let my boss know, my computer access is just gone. Bye. So, and to just equate this, people at my level in the agency, when they typically retire, have like galas in Washington, D.C. Their family gets flown in. There's a cake, there's a party, there's a dinner. It was a bye.
Well, you basically got what most people get when they get laid off is like everything gets shut down, you get walked out, even if it's on the phone, right? You were treated more like a layoff than a
Yeah,
celebratory moment for all that you contributed to where
right,
there's some sort of closure and good feeling about it.
right.
I just want to say, having my background in human resources for 20 plus years inside tech, if I could hug you right now, I would.
Thank you.
I want you to know that in the chat, people are already sending you love. I'm going to bring some up for you, but I want you to
Oh,
know you sharing this story is going to help more than you ever will know, because this is everyone's biggest fear. And what you're showing is, I still stood up for myself, and I'm still standing. Elton, I'm going to sing Elton John for a second, right? I'm still
Mhm.
standing, and look what's fired up in me now. You
Right,
will, I will stand up for myself.
right.
And if your system is broken and you're going to do this, I'm going to make my way anyway. I mean, you are a resilient, inspiring, heart based advocate on all levels, Susan. And I just want to give people a chance to drop that in here, because the first one is from Angela. Gail, can we bring up Angela? So, Angela, I'm so glad you're here, Angela. So, this is so good today. Real life experience from someone who went through it. I'm so inspired. Thank you for having her speak and share. Yes, right?
Yes. And I want to add to it. And Susan, first of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but it couldn't have happened to a better advocate, because you took the whole thing and you turned it around in your own life and helping so many others, because the need to advocate is at the very core, I think, of pretty much everything I've seen you do,
Mhm,
is that feistiness.
mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you so much. And that's absolutely why, because, it, and I'll tell you about a couple initiatives I'm working on right now, but getting information to medical schools and doctors and outside of the lipedema community, where if someone goes in and let's say that they have an employee who says, I have an employee who's asking for an accommodation because of stress, I want them to be able to Google it and find blog posts that say stress is a real thing. And here's the evidence based, research backed link to prove that. So you better not deny this woman when she asks for it, you know. And believe me, I will say this: the person who ended up doing this to me is not in that position anymore. Now they're probably still making bank, right? They're
Yeah.
probably still topped out at the salary cap and stuff like that, but they're not in a position of power. And I was looking at the agency strategic plan just a couple of days ago, and I noticed that every manager in the system is required to take diversity and inclusion and disability awareness training now. So even because I'm still raising hell behind the scenes, right?
Mhm.
I went to speak at the agency the other day. I was I can't say the name of it, but I was the one of the board members for the coalition of disabled employees for that agency, right? And so I still get invited back to speak on behalf of that coalition, and I talk about the story. I don't name names because I don't want to start drama in my life. Really, I don't need that. But I tell the story, and my intention is one of the books that I'm working on is a manager's guide to helping someone through a disabling condition. How can you support employees when they come to you with it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing, and employees don't want to do it. And that's why so many people don't report that they have disabilities at work, because they don't want to be thought of as like a troublemaker or
Right.
needy or whatever. But managers need to know how to lift their employees up and use them. Like, obviously, let's look at the three of us. All three of us have lipedema. And I'm just going to say it. All three of us are go-getters, and we're all really, really smart people, and would be a wonderful contribution to any organization,
Mhm.
whether or not our legs are swollen or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So I want to add, because there are more complexities to lipedema, because it's not just lipedema. You have mast cell,
I
mhm,
have
um,
mast cell.
and I have lymphatic complications up the yin yang these days. I've
mhm,
had central lymphatic issues. So, and I want to add, because so part of what happens with the lymphatic system is really spiking fatigue.
uh-huh,
And if you see me fall asleep, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at my disease in action. And rather than be embarrassed about it, it's really simple. This is it. This is all part of me. And my colleagues know and support it and work with me. And the same thing is what your message, Susan, is that it's like, stepping beyond that initial shame that we have. Like, we're taught that it's less than, when
mhm,
in fact, It's it's navigating together. It's like you get help from people as you move along. And that's what you're doing in the community. And that's what I want to, celebrate with you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely. And can we just talk? Thank you. And can we talk about the fatigue for a second? So, my body does not keep up with my mind anymore. I will
Mhm.
say I go to bed every single day, and my knees especially are aching. And that when the fatigue hits, you're right, it is over, right? And so now I work really, really hard, focused work. I get up, I in general, I don't make money. I have 27 books out, a lot of them under a pen name that aren't related to lipedema, right? And I'm just going to tell you, about every month, I make about $50 in book proceeds. It's not much. Like nobody, I say this all the time. Nobody's getting rich from book sales except for Stephen King and Amazon.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. Um, but I work really hard, focused work from 8 until about 1 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, my body just is like, go take a nap.
Yeah.
A really good long nap every day. I'm not kidding. And how do you do that in the corporate world? Right. But when you're at home and you're on, federal disability retirement and stuff like that, I still feel like I need to contribute to the overall world and work as hard as my body will let me. But it turns out, I'm just going to say this, I get a lot more done in those 5 hours of work now because I'm able to focus and I'm not in meetings than I have in years. And I really love the ability to not have that context switching that I had all the time at work from going to meeting to meeting to meeting. My brain is just on. It's amazing. And I love it. And I wish I could figure out a way to and not just for me, but for a lot of women that have lipedema who deal with the fatigue like what we have, a way for women to earn a living from home using their brain power and then take breaks when we need to.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
Someday,
I'm going
someday.
to join you guys on this because it's one of the things that Catherine has really helped me verbalize for myself, and that is having been in corporate my whole life, having burnt out and taking a stress leave.
Hmm.
3 months and thinking I was broken and there was something wrong with me, not knowing lipedema was flaring at the time,
Hmm.
thinking I'm having a heart attack, heart palpitations, all the stuff that was going on, to come back into my role in corporate and to really look at what matters most right now. How can I move my body? How can I rest? Where do I give my power away? Um, I never asked for accommodations because I thought that that was for someone who was disabled, not realizing I was becoming disabled.
Mhm.
And when I got my parking placard, which was years later, because I went back into corporate, then I left, and 7 years I've been doing, executive coaching and speaking, and now advocating. But when they gave me, I went to had my functional capacity exam because I really wanted to see if surgery was an option for me. And I still haven't done that. I mean, I have the functional capacity exam. I haven't had surgery yet. And I've really been thinking, what is that impact of that downtime for me? Because I work here, I run my own business, I have a 12-year-old, and I'm fatigued too, right? So, what's that recovery going to look like, Lisa? And how are you going to manage it all? But I got the functional capacity exam back, Susan, and they gave me a permanent disabled parking pass. And I was pissed.
Mhm.
I'm like, what? I thought I was just having a hard time walking. And she was like, I want to go through this with you. Like, you're fatigued, you're in pain, it's hard for you to walk or stand. Like, that is disabled. Like, you're not able to function in the world as you used to. And I have a colleague in our RLD group, and she works for she does accommodations in the workplace because that's some of the work we do. And I told her, I don't want to be accommodated, I want to be included. And
Mhm.
she said, Lisa, I invite you to think about your words very carefully. People have been fighting for accommodations for decades. It is it is owed to you from the stance of what is legal. And for you as a public figure to say you don't want to be accommodated, you're undermining all of the work of the advocates before you. And she said it lovingly and kind.
Mhm.
But I was just like, can I fit in a chair? Can you make sure that I can fly in the right airplane seat? Can we do all these things so I can be included in these experiences? And that's when I really started to realize how important languaging accommodation is, how I had to unlearn my own fat bias and shame, and even thinking, is this what does it mean to be disabled? I thought it was one thing. Well, I am, right? And like, do I own that? Do I work toward, like, this whole mental thing that goes on? And I think your story, we could probably do 7 episodes of just unpacking each step. What happened in your brain and in your heart? What fired up to go next? What did you own that was yours? And how did you let go of the rest and then step into your power? And so I just want to say, I think we need a part 2. There's no way we can get through it all. And I'm watching some of the chats. I want to bring in the voices here, but my
Oh, I
own
think
journey
we,
just mirrors yours in so many ways. But
Yeah.
I think it's unique to it too, right?
Right.
Sorry, Catherine, what'd you want to say?
I think we need more than a part 2. I think we need a very a very in-depth something that people can do a deep dive into.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to in-depth something. Yeah, I'm
Right.
going to bring some voices in real quick, Susan,
Sure.
so you can see. So let's see, Sandra. This has been informative and helping me understand my diagnosis more and to continue to advocate for myself. Yeah, Sandra, the story I just told you, I didn't even know I had lipedema then. I just thought I was burnt out. I have a whole business on burnout prevention. But yeah, underneath that was lipedema and everything that goes with it. So I'm so glad. Sondra, I'm going to say Sondra, not Sandra. Now I can see it in big print. Sondra. Um, Glenda has something here too. Let's see what Glenda is saying. I have SLE and a number of other issues initiated by lupus, and the biggest trigger is stress. Chronic fatigue is a huge one, not good when studying. Oh, Glenda. Yeah. Catherine, do you want to say something about what you're learning from the parent technique and chronic fatigue and all of the lymphatic pieces here that might help?
There are so many, especially with long COVID being sort of the undercurrent included in chronic fatigue and what's been happening. And I think it's just so important for people to realize that a simple acknowledgement of it goes a long way, because people aren't going to say, "Oh, you're sick, get out of here."
Mhm.
It's really an interesting journey. It is what Susan pointed to. It's our hesitancy to appear less than
Mm-hmm.
in some way,
Mm-hmm.
is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And Lisa, it's so funny that you said what you said. I don't want to be accommodated. I want to be included, right? And
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you, please, no one take what I'm about to say wrong, because what you're going to witness here is me working through my own grief. Okay. And I think that what you said was also you working through an initial stage of grief for
Yep,
yourself.
totally.
My husband and I were just having a conversation the other day. I said, I don't want to be disabled. I don't want to slow down. I don't. And he said, I think what you should say is, my body is doing all these things, but I don't identify as disabled. And I don't even know if that's offensive to people or not, but I know that my joints hurt. I know I can't do stairs anymore. I know I need to be out of the heat a lot of the times, right? I know that, if you watch me walk, you're like, something's wrong with her. And again, please don't take offense. But again, I'm working through my own doo-doo here, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be disabled. I want to go to work, and I want to be able to work 10 hours a day like I used to without having to take a nap. But guess what? That's not my story, right?
Mhm.
And it hurts to be able to say, I need that disability placard. and I went in to finish this part of the story. Like, I want to go back to work. I really, really do. What I realized is, I don't think I need to work where I was. And it's taken me a year and a half to get there. Like, I just felt like I was fired,
Yeah.
But I want to work for an organization that is supportive, and that when I have an issue, that the first thing that they do is come and put their hand on me appropriately and say, we're here to
With
support
consent.
you.
With consent.
Right. I did work in a male-dominated industry. And say, I don't know what the process is. I don't know the policy, but we want to support you. Instead of what I experienced was, how can we fight and cover our butts legally so that we don't get in trouble? And that's really the people that I was working with took the legal route, like, oh, we better cover our butts.
Yeah.
And they totally forgot the fact that I'm the person that, hosted your wedding shower at work. And I'm the person that lived at work for 2 weeks to get you through something that you broke and supported your butt in time. Like, they forgot that I was a person.
Yeah. Yes. There's
So
a human and a heart inside every person in the system.
yes.
In every person in the system.
And you know what, though? I mean, what's the statistic, Catherine? You probably know. More than 60% of adults in the workforce will experience some form of disability in their working careers. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
I
did a
think
whole
it's
episode on it.
67% actually now.
Yeah. And so, it might be you. Like, you might be perfectly healthy and running marathons today, but guess what? Tomorrow you could wake up and have whatever condition, and maybe you're a powerful female executive and you're doing great and you're doing all the things, and you start going through menopause and boom, lipedema. You don't know. It could be anybody, right? Yep. So have some compassion for people, for sure. So let me switch gears, though, because it's negative. But so let me just switch gears. All of this stuff, when I tell the story, watch what'll happen today. I'll go write a book today because it fires me up, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to tell you, if you're in a situation like this and you're in the workforce, don't let it go. Like, you deserve better. That's why we're putting out information, all of us, right? The three of us especially, but there are so many influencers and stuff out there sharing their stories so that it legitimizes your story when you need help. And that's one of the main reasons why I do it. And I want to talk about, so when I kicked off Lipedema Awareness Month in June, the very first thing I did is I wrote a letter to all of the major news agencies, the top 50 health magazines in the world, the Associated Press, Reuters, all of them, right? I mean, the list was this long if you looked at the 2-line. And I put out a press release requesting that the deans and curriculum committees of all the 180 medical schools in the United States and Canada be held to account for the fact that they need to be teaching lipedema. And I've been going down that path this month outside of the community. I think we're doing a fantastic job of sharing information internal to the community at this point, But my goal this year is to get out, to get more people just to understand, and also to bring in more people who are potential patients that don't know, right? So I'm really trying to reach out. So I put out this call for the deans of medical schools to bring lipedema education into the curriculum. My next step this week is letters to all of the major medical school publishers, book publishers in the United States and Canada, to include lipedema education into their textbooks and their curriculum. So that'll be going out here in the next couple of days. And then next week, my next step is more towards legislation regarding it. So the Department of Education has a committee. I think it's called the LCME. And they actually are the ones who have ultimate accountability and responsibility for certifying medical schools. And they set some pretty high level criteria, but one of the criteria is that you need to be able to teach information on major systems in the human body and major conditions in the human body. And that's the level that they write it at. So I'm going to be going to them and to the Department of Education and every Congress member that has anything to do with the oversight of the Department of Education, and imploring them that they've got to push this down from the top level as well. Like, it needs to be taught at all 180 medical schools. So that's what the remainder of my outside advocacy work looks like for the rest of this month. It's a pretty big deal. And I'm really putting myself out there because, anytime you do something like this, you set yourself up for somebody to be like, what are you doing? Who gave you permission to do that? And guess what? You don't need permission.
Oh my gosh, Susan, this is like the crew of the 3 ladies who just step into their power. Because I remember the first podcast I did, I didn't have it written down. I got on someone else's podcast and started saying, I have this thing and I didn't know, and you need to know. And I called Catherine and I'm like, I just did a thing. And she's like, she sent it to the whole list. She's like, let's go. Right? Because women that understand are going to lift each other up.
Mhm.
Men that love someone or know they're going to lift each other up too. Some men have lipedema and they feel excluded too because they're not even
Oh,
studied. So I say find
yeah.
your path, find your voice. Catherine, I think you might want to say something here about advocacy, and then we're gonna wrap it up because we are over, and I want to make sure there's a part two. But Catherine, I know you've been working very similarly in this with Susan. You might inspire each other right now.
She's been paving the way for everything I do. And I had to say that before you talk.
I am going to invite you, and more than invite you, support you in any way. The NIH, the National Institutes of Health, have recently put together a commission on lymphatic diseases, lobbied into being by Lymphatic Education and Research Network, Bill Rapisi, and Dr. Stanley Roxon, who really is the innovator around lymphatic knowledge in our system. He is at Stanford Medical School. Anyway, Dr. Roxon is the co-chair of that commission, and they have put out a request. It's called a RFI, a request for information from those of us who have the disease. They say, we want to listen to you. We want to know, and they've put it into categories. Perfect. I will send you all the, actually, we've been working with Dr. Roxon. So on our website, on Lipedema Project, there is a message from him inviting everyone to have their voices be heard. And Susan, I want your voice to be heard. Seriously, they have 4 categories that they're asking specific questions about, because what they're doing is they're beginning to form what's needed and how they're going to do future research in addressing all of these. And you have a voice that needs to be part of this.
Yeah, if you've all been inspired by Susan's story and Catherine's insight, or perhaps something I said, this is your invitation. Every voice counts, and we have until the 28th of June to fill it out. It's an online forum. Dr. Roxon's message is from the heart. He cares deeply. So, Susan, all of the work that you're doing to raise it at all these levels, this we just add to your toolbox, because this is our chance right now. They are listening. It matters. If you've been inspired by this, please, please, please go check this link and put your voice in there. I just want to say there's a bunch of chats in here about how you're inspiring people, Susan, what it means to them. They're all saying, go, Susan, go. And also, they're also, many of them, I saw something specifically from Juanetta too, that sometimes this situation is the catapult for something so much bigger than you could have ever imagined. I know that's true for you and how you talk. I know it's true for Catherine. It's certainly true for me. So hopefully you're taking from this conversation, if you're getting laid off and you didn't plan it, or all of a sudden you're disabled and no longer working because you didn't know it, or anything in between, please know that with community, navigating lipedema together, like, you can find your way. Don't do that alone. I'm sure, Susan, there were people in your world that had your back and supported you as you navigated finding your voice and stepping up. So do you have a closing thought here to just inspire advocacy for everyone? Like, how might we end this in a way where people feel inspired and resourced to go take care of themselves and to support this community?
Right. So my final thoughts are this: a lot of people aren't comfortable putting themselves out there as publicly as I do. If you follow my pages, you know that I share pictures of my legs. I overshare intentionally, right? Because I want people to know what I look like, what I'm going through, just telling the story. It's painful to tell the story, but if it helps one person, then it's worth it, right? And what I want to say is every single person has unique skills. It may not be public speaking or writing. Maybe you're a crafter. And I'm going to step back for a second, and I want to show you guys something. So this is a shirt that says EF02.2, the ICD-11 code for lipedema, right? This is the international standard that's been adopted, but not yet in the United States. This shirt was made by an advocate named Angela Gray. And she actually runs a company that does cruise wear type shirts and stuff like this. And she was like, how can I advocate? How can I use my skills and my resources She made this shirt and I wear it all over the place. I wear it to conferences and stuff a lot where medical professionals are, and they notice, right? I've had people come up and say, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a code. And so that's a great example of how you can use your skills in some way to advocate for women with lipedema, for men with lipedema too, right? Use what you have and do what you're comfortable with, but do something, you know, even if it's as small as uploading a clinician's guide to lipedema into your patient portfolio so your doctors and medical team have access to it. Do something so that you can raise awareness outside of your internal community. Everyone has power.
I love it. Yeah, and fill out the form. No.
I've got it written down right here. And in fact, I'm just going to share with you. So Saturdays are the biggest YouTube days, like the most impactful time. That's the day that I'm going to be doing a blog post and releasing my YouTube video about this NIH initiative. I think it's super important. And when you get invited to speak at the top level, do it, because we sure don't want people to say, well, we asked for feedback and no one gave it to us.
Mm-hmm.
We want it. In fact, we want millions of people to submit. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Susan, we're so grateful for you. If you're inspired by this episode, everyone, please like, share, comment. Please do that. We have some free webinars coming up. You can find them on our website. We want to support you on your journey as anywhere you're going. We are here. Susan is here. Catherine, how would you like to wrap us up today? What's your final thoughts for this episode?
We rock. I have to say that. And there's so many always that contribute to everything we're doing. And I want to do a shout out to Gail, who is running everything in the background. Our community manager, Gail Straker, is part of us. Even though you can't see her, she's here.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we do rock. You rock, everyone. Thank you for putting your voices in the chat. Susan, thanks for saying yes to the invite. It's really awesome and very life-giving for me to be in collaboration with you. You inspire me. I'm grateful for you. And everyone, thank you. Let's drop some love in there for Susan. Keep the work up. And thank you all so much for today. We will be back for part 2. Susan, you down for part 2?
Oh, you know it. Call me anytime.
Okay, we're going to do a part 2, everyone.
Okay.
All
Bye,
right,
everybody. Have a great week. See you later.
Have a great day. Heart to heart. Here we go. Talk to you soon.